What up, y'all? Welcome back to the show. Happy to be here one more time. I am Marco,
What's
one
happening?
half of your of the host, and then we got
Millie in the building. What's happening? AKA Jamel, one half
yes,
of the
sir.
dynamic duo. What up,
Yes, sir.
Cuzzo?
What up, man? We got Melly in the building, man. Shout out to you. Shout out to each and every one out there. Man, we gonna go ahead and hop right into it, unless we wanted to give some pleasantries. Actually, yeah. How was your week so far?
Man, always time for pleasantries. My week has been it's been okay. It's been a long one, but it's been okay. Had a great weekend last week, with a weekend day, last week.
Weekend day. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So this week's feels like a long one. But nonetheless, we're back up to another Friday. What about yours? How's your week been going?
Man, this week went by really quick. I guess because I've been really busy, which is a good thing because I mean things are getting done. But it was good. It was good. Good week so far. Man, excited to get a little break. This weekend. Did have a eventful weekend. Man, had fun hanging out with you and the rest of the fam. You know, for sure.
Oh yeah, bowling. That was cool.
Yeah, man. What you know, I don't want to go into it, but I know you came in late. I don't know. Maybe you had to warm up, but that first game, I was, you know,
Yeah, yeah. The first game, I didn't want to step on anybody's toes. So I just wanted to, allow whatever was happening happen. And then the next
mm,
game, I just kind of took over.
see,
Yeah,
got it. Okay, we'll run with that one. We'll walk with it too.
we
But
walked.
yeah. Yeah, man. I was talking to a coworker actually, and I was saying we probably need to do that. More. I need to go bowling more often because I have fun, but I also want to be effective when I go out there. I don't want to be throwing all gutter balls.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and that's something I could, do regularly. I can't hoop regularly no more. Those knees, they won't allow it.
Man, you got to get them volleyball knee pads, man.
Yeah, that ain't gonna help. Hey, I need a knee reconstruction. I need them to give me somebody else's cartilage.
Oh, you need the Adrian Peterson knee. You need a whole.
AP Lonzo Ball,
Right.
he got some cartilage from a cadaver put in his knee. You know,
Okay. You didn't
yeah.
get that, huh?
Nah, I didn't get that, man. They wasn't offering that, a few years ago.
Oh, they just said, let me just put this what is it? Let me put this paper clip and this rubber band in there, and we gonna be good.
Pretty much.
Oh man, hit that! Wah, wah, wah. That's cold. That's
Yeah,
cold,
ice cold.
man.
It, it is what it is, though.
Yeah,
You know, with time, different technology comes out, and so maybe if I hold on a little bit longer, I'll be out there dunking again. You know what I'm saying?
man. Get them stem cells from Mexico. Hopefully, Trump won't tariff it too much.
Man, hopefully, yeah. That definitely is a topic.
Right, right.
Hey, what's crazy is that I know this is kind of off topic, but you're talking about tariffs, and it doesn't necessarily fall into that.
So,
However, gas. So I hear all these people saying, "Oh, that gas went down. The gas went down." I'm like, shit. Like when is our gas gonna go down? You know what I mean? Our gas is like over $4.
mhm.
I'm like, man, what's going on? Like, hey, I want part in that too. I like cheap gas. I'm sorry, I like less expensive gas. I don't know, man. And then I just heard one of the oil refineries or something that's close, Phillips 66, I think,
Yeah.
is shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're saying that it's projected to make gas prices in California skyrocket to $8. I'm gonna have to give me a bike.
That's what it sounds like. Back on the bike.
Man. Hey, it's right there, to all I just need to do. I got the key right here on my keychain. I just
Right.
need to unlock it. You know, I might need a little tire service. Hey, might be back on that thing.
Time to get these e-bikes like they've been talking about.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right.
That'll work too.
Yeah.
But anyway, let us go ahead and hop into first topic. Man, so I don't know if you saw it, Cuzzo, but they got a new statue in Times Square. It's a 12-foot tall, bronze statue.
You said
in front of-
LeBron statue?
Bronze, yeah, not LeBron. You know, not him. Nah. Yeah, not LeBron, man. I'll go tear that down if they did. But
Right.
and I ain't even from New York. But anyway, a bronze statue, and it appears to be that of a African American woman, as some say, Black woman. Let me go ahead and see what some of our news outlets have to say about it, and then we could talk about it. Let's see here.
A new statue in Times Square we're told, turning heads. It's making people not only stop and stare, but also reflect. A rare feat in the middle of one of the busiest places in the world. Zinnia Maldonado shows us why.
At 12 feet tall, in the middle of Times Square, stands a bronze sculpture of a young woman.
It's instantly stood out. It's powerful.
It's so tall and big.
The sculpture created...
Hold on, man. Is that who's representing the Black woman? My bad. Hold on. Let me see. Let me go back.
Let me ask you a question. Is that looking like anybody we know? Who would that be? Anybody? Well, she got on some jeans, t-shirt. Just
I look like maybe stretch pants.
Maybe stretch pants. Regular,
regular. Hands on her hips.
Hands on her hips.
Looks like she got braids.
Braids, okay.
I mean, yeah, it could. I mean, it could be.
Yeah, it could be any one of our family members, right? Anybody we know, anybody we could have dated.
Yeah.
Anybody one of your teachers, staff members. Yeah. Okay. So far, so I don't see an issue. All right. Let's keep going.
On sculpture of a young woman.
It's instantly stood out. It's powerful.
Is that the representation? I mean,
so tall and big.
The sculpture, created by artist Thomas Price, was unveiled at Duffy Square last week, and in just a matter of days, it has stopped hundreds in their tracks. Who is she? Well, technically, she's whoever you want her to be.
Me being a plus-size Black woman, I kind of looking at it was just like, oh, I wonder what me as a small child would have thought looking at something like that. Representation.
The piece is part of a series called Grounded in the Stars, which Gene Cooney, director of Times Square Art, says confronts preconceived notions of identity and representation.
To have this work here is making a statement, potentially asking questions about what we value as a city, as a society, and hopefully it's a tribute to our shared humanity.
Tourists and New Yorkers we spoke with expressed different interpretations of what she represents to them.
It's a plus-size woman. I'm a plus-size man. I'm African American. It's the African American.
Bro.
They be getting the corniest, most just out of nowhere people for these interviews.
Man, all right.
Sometimes,
we got like 40 more seconds. Let me go ahead and let him rock. Let him rock out.
Woman statue. So just seeing another piece for me to stop and just have a moment with was very powerful.
If you look at the eyes, it's looking straight at something, it's focused, it's purposeful.
The sculpture proves to be a well-liked juxtaposition placed among the more traditional statues in Times Square, which is the goal, according to officials, of placing said artwork in such a significant area.
Coming from a person of color background as well, it's really nice to see something come across as like this everyday person that looks a little bit out of place. But I also think that's because of where we are standing. It might not look out of place if everything in our surrounding reflected everyday life more to us.
From Times Square, Zinnia Maldonado, CBS News, New York.
Cuzzo, what you got, man?
Yeah. What kind of shoes did she have on? Was those loafers or
I don't know, man. Let's see.
what kind of shoes though? Since you the shoe expert, I thought I'd ask.
Man, no, what are those? That's what they are.
What are those? All right. I don't know, man. I always have to take a step back, man, and kind of take a second to kind of analyze, stuff like this because for me personally, I think on, many different levels when you see stuff like this happen out in the public. Immediately I thought, okay, at first when I first saw it, I thought it was fake. I didn't know if it was real or not.
Yeah, me too.
Then I went back and looked at a few different outlets, and then I saw that what you just, showed. I said, oh, okay, so this is real. And then I was like, all right, so the statue is for what? So I listened to it, and then I said, okay, what does this sound like? To me, this sounds like, anything else that we've been going through the past 4 or 5 years that has to do with inclusion or DEI or, anything else, Black Lives Matter, this seems to be the remnants coming from that. The whole positivity you pull out of it, okay, cool, but I'm looking at it from other angles,
Right.
What is the PSYOP? And when I say PSYOP is what is the operation that, is laid before you to either extract information, which is also energy, which is the reaction, and then also, either, positivity, backlash, whatever. It's just like anything else you'll do if, you do like a review for a restaurant. You want to see, what the consensus are, what the people are saying,
Right.
So, looking at it from that angle, they want to see what the feedback is. You're asking who they are. I don't know. They could be many different people, many different organizations, but we all understand, basically who the controllers are, on many different levels. You're controlled by your emotions. You're controlled by your habits. You're controlled by, what you see on a daily basis and interact with. So it can be some form of that as well. There's not a right or wrong answer here, or a good or a bad one. I just see it as that. What's the reason for it? What is it helping? My city do? What is it helping the city of New York? There's many different issues that we're dealing with. Domestically. That we have personal issues with. That I think are more important. But of course, you also have to make time and place and space for, things from the art, district, and they consider this art, So it's interesting. I like to see where it goes. I like to see, what happens or more reactions, to it. So yeah, what you got? What you think about it?
Man, you know what's funny is that I was thinking kind of on the same lines as you when you initially started speaking. You know, DUI. I'm sorry, DEI, not DUI. Not trying to drive under influence. Oh man, but I thought DEI, and actually I went into I've been using like Chat GPT for like a lot of different things. It's been very helpful, like
Mhm.
for a lot of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like finding out paperwork that I need to fill out for certain things, and finding like historical uh information and things like that, helping me organize a lot of different things. But anyway, it's not about ChatGPT. But I was reading them, I was like, give me like some background on uh on the statue. Like, they did kind of tell us who was the creator of the statue, Thomas J. Price. But then like when you go deeper, it talks about the sculpture. And let me see. Let me make sure. Oh, no, okay. So then they have about the sculpture, and then it shows artistic intent and public reaction. So that's the part that kind of I was curious about. So it says like Thomas J. Price's work challenges traditional norms of monument making, questioning who is deemed worthy of being immortalized in public art. By placing a representation of a modern Black woman in the heart of town square, the sculpture invites viewers to reflect on identity, representation, and societal values. DEI, which is, I mean, that's what I kind of got from it, and like to again, I kind of agree. Like I didn't think it was real at first. I was like, what is this? What is the statue for? Or why would they, put the statue out there? But then when I saw it was real, I was, got more curious as to why this particular representation of a Black woman, and kind of like we said earlier, it could be a number of people, that family, friends, the average person, but then you look at like the kind of like the facial expression and the you know uh hands on her hips, things like that. I don't know, man. It kind of like, is this how the world sees the average Black woman? And some women saw it as powerful. You know, I don't know, man. I just got a lot of things going on in my mind about it, because it could be looked at a lot of different ways. You know what I'm saying? Like, what
Mhm.
about the you know the fit, educated, you know what I'm saying? Like business oriented Black woman. You know what I mean? What about those?
Mhm.
You know, do we have to, and I'm not saying anything is like totally wrong with it, but you know, this is how, and you spoke about this too. This is how they kind of like see people, you know what I mean? Like the average, like the average, Black woman. Some people see it as confidence,
Mhm.
but then other people will see it as, you know, uh pushy. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Some people could see it as a lot of different things. So I don't know. I don't want to, like add too much of that, but it just, the way that she's standing, like I said, the way that she's dressed, um, braids, like, and who is Thomas J. Price? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
what is his history around, you know, Black women? Like, this is obviously this is what he depicted, like the, you know, powerful, I guess he said, in the powerful, Black women are confident. And you have people that, like you had African American woman that says, it gives her confidence because because she's a plus size, woman, and things like that. you know, but I don't know, man. Like I think the society praises a certain look, you know, and I feel like maybe I should change that. I think that I see people push a certain agenda when it relates to, you know, a certain type of black woman, and sometimes I don't know, I don't think it's favorable, you know, for them. You know what I mean? Because that's where we start to get those stereotypes, you know, from. You know, I don't know. I know I feel like I'm speaking in a circle, but
Yeah.
yeah, I am, man. Yeah.
Well, not speaking in a circle, I was just going to add to what you were saying because I'm reading his website while you're talking, and basically he's saying that you know, grounded is what the statue was called, was grounded in the stars. You know, Price reimagines both the monument and monumentality in Times Square, one of the world's most iconic public spaces. And basically, you know, he's just challenging the depiction of, you know, black women, you know, or what beauty is, you know, or what humanity is. Because a lot of times, you know, you have magazines, you got to be this size or this size. But then I also give pushback on that. I'm saying, is this depiction, is this the strongest and healthiest this individual could be
Exactly.
in this current state? You know, based on the environment that you're in and the choice that you're choosing, you have become this person to where you're now saying, hey, you know, I'm happy with the person I am, you know, based on what? You know, settling, you know, allowing yourself to, you know, take on habits that are not yours, you know, traditionally, traditionally, yes, you know, but traditionally, no, because this is not your best and highest self, you know. True, everybody can't be the same size and, you know, blah, blah, blah. I get it. This is not a sweeping statement. But I do know, you know, from experience and living where I've lived for most of my life and being around our family members, we do know and understand, you know, diet, environment, all those things play a role in, you know, everyone's mental health, you know, spiritual health, you know, so forth and so on. So, you know, this depiction and this right here, you can say is powerful. She's staring at something in the distance. You know, I'm looking at it and it's just kind of like, yeah, okay. I mean, whatever you feel from this, you know, it's doing the job. It's giving whatever you're supposed to get from it, you know.
Well, let me
So
ask you this though. So you speaking about this particular statue, if you look at, like, what if they had to put a statue of a fit, like I said, fit, you know, feminine, you know, woman, black woman up there? Do you think there would have been pushback?
of course, I think it would have been pushed back. I think this is more acceptable amongst the population, even amongst women, you know, because there's some vulnerability here. You know, there is some feeling of, I don't want to say self pity. I don't know if that's the word, but also some humility. You know, um, you know, this woman is going to be loved whether she's this size or the other side. They're going to say that. But if it was a fit person, they never would say that. This woman is going to be loved whether she's this side or bigger. You know, it's always what you see in front of you, and then you can always do better. You know, no one
Right.
wants to see a statue of a powerful, fit individual in Times Square because what type of depiction is that giving? You know, how does that make people feel? Do you feel less than because the person is fit, or do you feel just as good than the next person because this person is clearly, you know, overweight somewhat, not the best of shape, you know. So it's just kind of like, you know, you can kind of play with both sides of it.
Sorry, I should have had that Shout right there.
All good.
Yeah, man, I know I was kind of all over the place, but I have so many different thoughts, and I know I get to get better at working on addressing one or the other. But um, yeah, I just think that, and he is black actually. I didn't know what he was. And not saying that matters a whole lot, but I just, you know, I just think it fits right into that DEI, you know, uh, scope of things. Like I think it fits right in that DEI. Yeah, just based on, you know, what the philosophy was, you know, and I get it,
This
you know,
is
that you,
this is pandering right here to me. You know,
yeah,
this is
100%.
this is that's what just came up to me right now when you said it. This is more pandering. Who are you pandering to? You know, people
100%.
they don't need this. This is the wrong thing to give people. You want people to become better and do better for themselves. This image is not what people need. Yes,
Right.
there's people like this that exist, but you need, you know, not this.
Yeah, you want people to strive to be, you know, more.
Right. And you're not going to give people what they need, you know, so they could succeed at a high level, you know, and be able to do, you know, without you, or do without what you choose to give of people, you know.
Right.
And so one can go beyond and above and you know, apply the highest and best to themselves and people that look like them, and they won't need whatever crumbs you have to give them or allow them to have.
100%. Yeah, I was listening to something the other day, you know, and they were talking about this as well. And you know, they brought up how, you know, black woman is depicted, how, you know, people see her and things like that. And you know what, I won't go deep into it, man. We talked about enough about it, you know. But I definitely, I don't know. I was just like I said, like everybody, like most people, I was curious. And I don't know if you heard the Indian lady at the end. She was like, I'm sorry, I think she was in it. If I'm not, forgive me. I mean, if she's not, forgive me. But she was like, I at first when I looked at it, I thought it was out of place. Like it was, you know, like it was just, they just put it right in the center, you know, this particular statue. But then she said she started to look at it, and you know, she started to feel differently, you know. And that's what I thought, like it was kind of out of place. And you know, I mean, I don't know, like I said, I'm not gonna go more into it. We'll go on to the next topic.
Well, some people are culturally misappropriated, you know, by the site or things that have to do with a certain demographic of people because they're depicted in such a way
Right.
that when you see things of that nature, then yeah, you would naturally say, "Oh, this looks like this is out of place. Why is this here?" You know.
Do you think that that's how a lot of other, you know, people see us? You know, the way that we, you know, when we look at it, we, you know, that's what we see or what we recognize, or do you think they see us, you know, differently? I know it's gonna be a mixed bag, but you know, in general, how do you think most other people see us?
Like we're out of place, and if we're inner space, we're looked at with um envy. There's some envy there. There's also some, you know, not understanding why you choose to be in the state that you're in. You know, why do you continue to be the way that you are and do the things that you do? And I could only go by the lower parts of us, the entertainment, the dancing, and all that stuff. Of course,
Right.
that's easy. But you know, the violent stuff, you know, with being with one another, those things, not supporting one another, not having, a greater community, in this space and place that we, you know, built pretty much, for generations and generations and generations. So when someone says something's out of place, that means you were removed, or you're supposed to be in a specific space. And if you're in a place like Times Square, which is very busy, a lot of different nationalities roll through that space,
Right.
most of the time people are not privy or not used to seeing, American Black people, so to speak.
Right.
It can be Dominican, it can be Puerto Rican, it can be,
African.
Indian. But when you see American Black in a space like that, it pulls something different out of you, because they're supposed to be the lowest on the totem pole.
Hmm.
We hold up the foundation of everything that happens or is allowed to happen here.
Yeah.
I heard someone give that talk, and that's not mine. I heard somebody else say that. Black women hold up the foundation. That's why they're depicted at the lowest level that they are, because they're the foundation of this whole thing, which I agree. Or else why would you continue to make them look such a way? And then you give them certain roles and certain positions politically, and then they act like they act, because they're expected to be that way. This is the character we need you to play. So if you can do that, then you get to have this life, or you get to have this position.
And I was just going to ask you that. I was going to say, like, do you think that, a lot of them were incentivized to be a certain way? You know what I mean?
Of course, we like you in this position because we know that you embody these characteristics. They may say certain words or have certain things that they may say they want you for, but then they understand how you can be. Just for when you go to the movies and there's a movie being made and you go out for a part, naturally people may be better in the role than others because they are naturally this way. I'm not acting. This is who I am.
Right.
So when you naturally have these characteristics, that you can display, then yeah, you're going to be more suited for the position and the role.
Okay. I have another question, actually. So this is actually something I heard as well. Who do you think? Let me remember how it was worded. I know how it's playing in my head. Who do you think the most hated? Maybe I'll say disliked. Race and sex. And I'll say like out of black male, heterosexual male, white heterosexual male, white heterosexual woman, and black heterosexual woman.
The most hated in terms
most disliked. It just yeah, just in general, like as it relates to their place in society, place in society, place in the workplace, place in the family. Like, who do you think the most, maybe disliked is not the right word. Let me see. Uh-oh.
Yeah. See a battery low.
Marginalized.
Man. It's the black man, hands down.
Okay.
We're the higher at rate incarcerated. And that number there, we're killed at a higher rate. They're gonna use that number. But I would just say in terms of, fear, there's a reason why all people are exploited, from the top down, but I would just say, in terms of the numbers, in terms of the information that you see out there, in terms of stories that you hear, in terms of movies that are made, there's many different ways and things you can say. Now, I could be wrong. That's just my opinion, just thinking about it just off top. But I can also make a point for it could be, black women. I can make a point for it to be, white males. I can make it a point that we can make it white women, everyone has their place in space that they've been able to, have their time at that level of, we're going to focus on these individuals, this group of people, and do everything we can not to make sure that they get to this level. Now, for us, we've been there the longest. If you go through history, you can think of every different type of stage or every different type of, operation. And, a lot of times we are part of that, So you have to ask yourself, what's the reason for that? Is there some truth to that? And not just going off talking points, not just going off hot button, information. You have to really go through the history and really seek out that information, So that's my take on it. We get a whole different camera. I might be the only one on here talking there.
No, you good.
Okay.
So why would you say, like, why would you say the black male? Can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, I mean, because again, it's a fear-based thing. We're hated because we're the strongest. We have the most gifted talents. Physically, mentally, spiritually. People hate what they can't be or they can't be like. People hate what they don't naturally have in terms of gifts. If they want something, they see that you have something. They want to be able to exploit that. So you definitely try to control that at all costs, because if that person ever had the opportunity to, do things their way, then yeah, what are they for?
100%, man. Crazy. All right, let's see.
That's all right.
I'm looking blurry.
You made it. There you go.
There we go. All right. Yeah, man. So I actually agree with you, and I mean, and people can make their case, for any of those four. Somebody was saying it was the white male, and I'm just like I get, you know what I mean? Like, they caught some strays, you know what I'm saying? But the black male is not even liked in his own family, you know what I mean? Like, he's pushed out of his own family. And then he's not seen as equal, to the white male. I mean, and to be honest,
Or he's
huh?
He's not. He's not
Right.
even.
Well, yeah. Well, and this is going back to the, whole 3/5 of a person. I know that thing is out the window. We talked about it, but I mean, some people still believe that. You know what I mean? Like, if you go to the, women talk about, oh, I'm not paid as much as, males. Like, a lot of black men are not paid as much as, the white male. It does the same job.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of, and this is not necessarily their fault, but sometimes it's a who type of thing, or that's my uncle, or that's my nephew, or that's my dad's friend type of thing. there's a lot of factors. The only person we get love from is from the white woman a little bit, but because they have a fetish, some of them have a fetish, for us. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, man. We are starting to find our place, our own place, and it's taken a long time, but the family structure, like back in the day, like in the the 60s, 50s, 60s, the family structure was strong. The man was the head, the woman played her part, the man played their part, the kids stayed in line for the most part. And as we got down in history, man, like, hey, you know what? Hey, we tired of seeing y'all, doing, working together. We need to throw something in the, in the mix,
Mm-hmm.
and get these men up out of here, because, if this keeps happening, this multiplies, that we're gonna have problems.
We're gonna be outnumbered.
And so you know what? Hey, let's go to the women, because hey, they love their women. Hey, ladies, we give you this money and we give you these incentives. What do you think about, the man can't be around, but you won't have to worry about, taking care of yourself, because we're going to take care of you. We're going to be daddy now. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's caused a ripple effect, man, in today's society. I mean, that was one of the factors. Some will say it's, drugs and things of that nature, but yeah.
I'll just speak on that real quick from experience. Being a good guy will more than likely always get you put in a position to where you have a choice, to just stay the good guy or become the bad guy.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, because you are an individual that has high character, a lot of times, if you cannot be manipulated into doing things that are outside of that character, people don't like that. Women can be manipulative too. So if they can't manipulate you, then that right off the bat, makes them upset, because you're not, being controlled in a way that makes it easy for them, to manipulate you, from an emotional standpoint.
Right.
So, adult to adult, woman to man, it can't be done. But okay, well, I'll use this child. I'll use your child to do it, and then that's how I'll get you. And it worked. It worked 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
But mentally strong men who make it through that and don't crash out, are tested, to the brink. And the ones that pass and are able to get through that, they'll have a story to tell. But at the end of the day, people will say, "Yeah, that's not true. It didn't happen that way." Well, of course you'll say that, because it doesn't paint you in the light of positivity, But my experience was my experience, and I'm not going to lie about it, because I was here for the whole thing. Now, if I'd have done something crazy and went to jail, then yeah, you might have that right to say that. But
For sure.
no, I was here the whole time, so I'm not going to sit here and lie about it. You did what you did. I did what I needed to do, to stay sane, and make it through the abuse, all what, because you want to be in control. You wanted to be the man.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Trust me, I know. I know.
Right. But yeah, man. Where we at now? What topic are we on now?
Man, we're gonna go over to actually, we was gonna talk about Smokey, man. I'm gonna save Smokey for another day.
It's Friday. We gotta talk about Smokey. Oh, not that
Man.
Smokey. Not
Let me
that.
see. So I'm gonna just play the audio for this, because I couldn't find the video. I'm gonna have to log into Instagram, but yeah, I'll just play the audio for this one.
I'm mute. I'm on the move.
All right, hold on.
Because of a recent video I did about Jack. So I was just told that I turned my back on the Black community because of a recent video I did about Jasmine Crockett. I've been waiting on this one. What this is called is selective morality. Let's ignore the fact that ain't no white robes running through our neighborhoods, just Black folks terrorizing other Black folks. Let's ignore the fact that ain't no white supremacists shooting up our blocks. It's us. Let's ignore the fact that we make music glorifying our own destruction and then cry when the streets match the lyrics. We love screaming Black unity, but will rob, jump, scam, and kill our own people with no hesitation whatsoever. Preaching we gotta stick together while setting up your own.
Well, let me see if I can find another video because I don't know if
for why our neighborhoods look like war zones while cheering for the very culture that keeps them that way. Talking about Black pride while rapping about murdering each other, turning women into baby mamas, and making it seem like being broke, violent, and ignorant is a personality trait. Everybody want to scream support Black businesses, but will run to Gucci before you ever spend $1 with your own people while looking for a hookup at the same time. We want to whine about gentrification, but won't invest in your own damn community. Instead, trash it. And then cries when somebody else moves in and builds it the fuck up. And then the worst part, y'all expect every Black person to fall in line with this bullshit ideology. Because how dare a Black person think for themselves, right? How dare someone not subscribe to this self-inflicted victimhood bullshit? Y'all want unity? Start by looking in the fucking mirror. The truth is, Black folks ain't even for Black folks. The biggest threat to Black people ain't Trump. It ain't the police. It ain't white people. It's us. It's our own self-hatred, our own refusal to hold each other accountable, and our own addiction to playing the goddamn victim while glorifying the very shit that holds us back. Who's out here shooting up Black neighborhoods? Not Trump. Who's rapping about killing each other, robbing each other, and treating our women like trash? Not Trump. Who's making our own communities unlivable, unsafe, and uninvestable, then crying about it, wondering why they won't build up our neighborhoods? Not Trump. Who raised us to fear and hate each other more than any racist system ever could? We did that to ourselves. But now let's keep blaming everything on racism while we kill, rob, and destroy our own at a rate the Klan could only dream of. Let's keep pretending every Black person is on the same team when half of y'all wouldn't even piss on another Black person if they were on fire. Y'all would film it and yell World Star. Let's keep screaming about oppression while cheering on the destruction of our own communities. Y'all don't want justice. Y'all don't want unity. Y'all don't want progress. You just want an excuse to stay in the same damn cycle while blaming everyone else but yourselves. So nah, I'm not turning my back. So I was just told.
Yo, so I mean, hopefully you were able to hear that. But to hear that, he's speaking facts, man. Like you say that, hear that. You know, some people say that, you know, some people have turned their back on the Black community. And I mean, that could be the case for some people, you know, but I think it's people like to play victim, kind of like he said. You know, they don't want to be objective when it comes to things. They want to stay in the same place as they've been. They want to keep the culture in the same place that it's been. They don't want to grow because they want to play the blame game. Oh, he's doing this because of that. Man, it's a fact that, you know, for instance, deportation. You know, I know this is not a necessarily Black issue, but you know, you have some Black people jumping on the bandwagon. You know, oh, why is he deporting people? What is that gonna do? Blah blah. However, You know, Obama deported 6 million people and they didn't have nothing to say. You know, Obama, you know, had people's kids, you know, locked up. You know what I'm saying? And they didn't say anything. You know, and then they shout, you know, oh Trump did this, Trump did that. Hey, a lot of the same talking points that Trump is speaking on, you know, and that he's putting into play, you know, your other presidents did it, your presidents that you praised, you know, and I think that's part of the problem is that, you know, people are not objective enough, or they can't say, you know, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I could look at this objectively and see, you know, what are the good things, what are the bad things, you know, and I'll say I don't agree with him 100% because there's some things that I have questions about as well, you know. But I was talking to a coworker, you know, actually few coworkers earlier today, and we were talking about leadership and things like that. And when you're in leadership, you have to be objective, you know, in a lot of areas, you know, because some people get into a place and they don't think they need improvement. Yeah, they don't think they can improve, or they don't want to see where they can improve, and they just live their life that way. And where they're at, and if they elevate, it takes them, you know, they still have the same mindset, and that's how a lot of us are. You like, as we go along in life, you know, if we still repeating the same things, I'm a, you know, I've repeated some of the same things, so I'm in that boat too, in some areas. But we get to be objective, and being objective is like, okay, you know what, I may have messed up here, or I may have did something wrong, you know, and I need to grow, you know. And but when people do that, and people make different decisions that you don't necessarily agree with, they turn their back. Like, I don't understand that. Like, I never understood why we can't, you know, agree, you know, sometimes that we don't agree on the same things. But why does it have to be a negative thing? Or I turn my back on the Black community. I mean, nobody's told me that, you know, before, but, you know, people had things to say about certain choices that I made as it relates to, you know, who I think should run the country. And I'm sure, you know, if I had a bigger platform, people might say that, you know, or if I spoke about it to more people that didn't agree with me, you know, then they would say that. But on the whole, like I like he spoke facts, man. Like, I agree with them, you know. Like, we always, you know, try to point the finger at a person who's trying to be better, but then what about all these things that we need to take care of in our community? Like, we're killing our own people. You know what I mean? And you're concerned about, you know, like, oh, he's racist, oh, he's doing this and that. Like you said, you don't have no white suits running through the neighborhood. You know, you have, like, you know, whatever their names is, little so and so, you know, this person, that person killing people, and a lot of times you know who they are and you won't say anything. So I don't know, man. Like I said, today, you know, I should put up my banner right here. Let me see. There we go. So that's what it is today. And I'm gonna turn it off. I'll pass it to you though, cuz you got something to say.
Man, I like that banner, man. I need to get me one of those for sure, because I know I'll be ranting sometime. But yeah, that's yeah, man. He definitely said a lot of things that I agree with, and you know, I was just thinking while you were talking, I was like, what is the Black community? You know, we're for sure. Like, where is the Black community? We haven't had a true Black community for a long time now. And I think we have remnants of a Black community. We have culture, you know, like you said, we have, you know, entertainment. But in terms of us coming together and truly locking arms and, you know, making some things happen, there's a lot of scattered things that are happening in and around the country, you know. and it's for a good reason. You know, a lot of times we hear certain things and people react to them, and then they all of a sudden, because we disagree, that we can't, you know, be family, or we can't, you know, coexist because I have a different opinion. You know, who taught you to think or act that way? You know, I don't get that one. Because a lot of times when I have conversations and people, you know, say some things or look at it differently, you know, I ask, okay, well, why do you feel that way? Or who taught you to do this or do that? Where did that come from? You know, I'm curious because, you know, I don't know everything, you know, but I do know right from wrong. You know, I do know how to look at things, you know, from a space of logic and not get emotionally manipulated. You know, I know when, you know, things are happening that's meant for you to be controlled by, which is the same, you know, racist, you know, narrative that's been going on for time and time again, you know. So a lot of times when I hear these things happen, it's just kind of like, it's not even, it doesn't even happen in a way that you can say, okay, wow, well, this is really something that we need to look at. No, it's just really haphazardly being done to where it's just being slapped on the wall like stucco, or, you know, thin paint on the wall after someone moved out of an apartment. Now you're just trying to get it for the next person to move into. So you're not even really, you're not even coming with anything brand new. You're just coming with the same old playbook, and you expect people to listen to it and go along with it, you know, because it has the name black on it, you know, like this is Obama, you know, like people, you know, voted for him because he's black, you know, like I knew people who voted for, you know, Kamala because she was black and she was a woman. We got to get out of that mentality. We have to. We got to start talking about real issues and having real conversations about, you know, how people really want to live and coexist with one another. You know, if you're just doing things for the novelty of it, then you'll continue to be in the space and the place that you've been in, you know, which is in the hoods, you know, only being called on when people are ready to be entertained by you or want to, you know, manipulate someone, talking about culture, talking about racism, talking about DEI. And, you know, here comes the poster board people for it. You know, it's time out for that. You know, we've already seen it, we've already heard it. You know, we've heard the history, we celebrate it every year, you know, for Black History Month. I'm over it. You know, people gotta want to do better. And if you want to do better, it has to be action back behind that. You can't come with the same rhetorical statements, you know, that your, you know, constituents have been using for years and expect me to pay attention to you and respect, you know, the words that you're using because they have no real merit behind it. You know, what are your tactical ways of talking, you know, or what are you really trying to accomplish for the people, you know, by speaking in this tone or manner? You know, so I would have those types of conversations with people that say the same thing over and over and over, you know, and you really have to pay attention to what people are saying or how they're saying it, and have some follow-up questions about what they're saying. Are you saying it for this? Or are you saying it for that? I'm not sure. Can you clarify? You know, and if someone goes on and tells a story, they're not going to clarify shit. They're going to keep, you know, talking that magical mumbo jumbo, and you still going to be confused, you know?
Right. Yeah, you know what? That this kind of reminds me of a conversation I had with a young lady, and I kind of talked to you about it last week. Right. So, you know, she didn't necessarily agree with how I voted. And I'm sure she thought I was a sellout. She definitely expressed that, you know, that she didn't like it, and she didn't want to even allow me to converse with her. And I tried to understand like why, you know, she, you know, didn't like the way I voted, you know, because maybe she could have shared something with me that, you know, I would have been enlightened about, something I could look into and you know, figure out. However, you know, just like some people do, they, you know, they lead with their emotions. And so, you know, I was really like, honestly, I wasn't trying, you know, because I wasn't trying to play any games with her. I was serious. Like, why? What is it about it? Like, maybe I would have been able to enlighten her. You know what I'm saying? It's not, you know, about trying to change her mind right then, but it's, you know, disrupting her consciousness. Maybe it's something that she, you know, I could have shared with her, she could have shared with me, that we could have, you know, understood each other better. You know, but you know, to your point, you know, like when we decide not to have conversations, but to, you know, and talk about things, you know, how we could grow, how we could be better, how we can make a difference, then you know, things continue to be more the same.
Yeah.
More the same.
I mean, a lot of times people are comfortable in their ignorance, and people are comfortable in their biases, you know. And you even seen it, you know, with you know, bigotry and racism, you know. You know, sometimes people don't want to hear, you know, information or talk from people that they want to remain biased or bigoted to, because if you make too much sense, then they have to listen to reason or logic. And if they don't listen to reason or logic, then they are choosing to be ignorant, you know, because they choose to be a certain way because this is what they're choosing. You know, like you said, I wasn't trying to change her mind about Trump, but I just wanted to share, or her to share with me, some information she might have that I might not be privy to. So that's why we have these conversations, you know, so we can all be more knowledgeable in how we're being with one another.
Right.
That's how you do it. You have conversations, you have disagreements, you know, you know, drink up and you know, have disagreements, and then you go about your separate ways. That's
Right.
it. You know, we don't have to be buddy. Right. But I know how you feel the way you feel, and it might even not even be valid. It could just be on biases. And if I know that's you, then I know, you know, what your opinions are. I can't really take them, you know, as a valid disagreement, because you are already biased against the individual. And it's kind of like science. When you have science, you always have to, you know, you can't just say, okay, we're going to just get rid of this side of, you know, the science, and we're going to keep this side, and then this is what we're going to have a debate on. Well, that's not a real debate. You're not allowing all information to be available to everyone so they can make a true scientific decision.
Right.
If you're not allowing all information, or if you're only allowing a certain information to be put on and displayed about one individual, and then the other side gets to do things this way, well, then that's not a fair fight.
Right.
It's not unbiased opinions. That's bias, as we've been saying.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, kind of like on the same lines of what you're saying, is that you have to know what the initial theory is that scientists may have, and then guess what? Because we don't all have the same ideas, because we have different thoughts, you get to challenge those, but you have to know kind of first what's up, and then you get to challenge those theories, and that's how we get innovation. That's how we get new theories, new things, new inventions, new everything. Like, you know, that's how these things come about, because we don't live in a silo. And I think I might have said this already. We don't live in a silo, and we're not gonna always agree. You know, but sometimes it's good to understand a person's point or where that person is coming from, and then you guys could build on that. You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean you have to, you know, necessarily agree with them, but shutting down the conversation because you just don't like like that, the person that in this instance that I voted for is ridiculous. And how can you grow, if you do that with things that you don't, that you just because you don't like it, you don't want to, do it. So I don't know, man. Like, that was an interesting conversation. And she said, don't talk to me no more, Trump lover. I thought it was kind of funny, but people are gonna do what they're gonna do. So it's unfortunate that there's people out there like that, and they don't want to have differences with people that they could talk and figure out and learn about new things that they may, or new information they may not necessarily have known about, or a different point of view, that they may not have. So yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. Hey, Cuzzo, well, I know it's about that time. If you have any thoughts, closing thoughts, you're more than free to hop in. You know what? I guess I could. Oh, there you go. If you have any closing thoughts, because I know you almost to your destination, so I want to go ahead and close it out.
Yeah, no doubt. As always, man, I appreciate you, Cuzzo, for taking care of everything on the back end and setting this up. And I appreciate these conversations, man, the people that get to either tune in or hear this at a later date and recording, and definitely get in the comments. And if you so feel compelled to, kind of respond and give your take on what we talked about, because that's what this is about. It's a platform that we get together and able to have conversations that we have normally online, but in a more wide open setting, because this is a podcast that we have to get together and let people just give their opinions, and then we come back even though we disagree or agree, and we do it again. That's how we learn from one another. Not stay the same, but we learn and grow from one another by doing it that way. So I appreciate y'all, man, and don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. All that. Take that. Not Diddy, though.
Hold on, pause that.
No Diddy.
All of that.
And I appreciate y'all. Love y'all.
Absolutely appreciate you, Cuzzo. We're gonna not that one. There we go. Round of applause to you. Yeah, man. So thank you for hopping on. Pause. Thank you for jumping on the live stream. It was fun to chat with you another time. I don't have anything much to say, man. Other than, man, thank you for our future viewers. Like Cuzzo said, man, comment. We're not a monolith, so definitely tap in. Give your opinion. Because I believe I can be objective enough to say, okay, that might be a valid point. But then also it may be something that's a valid point, but I may not necessarily have to agree with it. And that's how we do this thing, man. So anyway, we appreciate you. We will holler at you next week. Have a phenomenal weekend. Nah, I'm not about to play that. We out of here, Cuzzo. Peace.